Hi. So today at Maushu's Pilates, we are kind of summing up the whole pelvic floor series that we've been talking about. So if you've missed all of those videos, we have 4 on which we've discussed the recruitment and then the endurance of the pelvic floor, and then taken that to different cases like in hysterectomy and how to build to a much higher functional level and diastasis. So definitely take a look at these videos if you've missed any of these. Along with each of these videos, we also have a blog. So do look at our blog page on www.maushuspilates.com, and then you can match the blog to the video, and you're just going to get a whole lot of information. Today's conversation is going to be about pelvic pain. Now, pelvic pain is a very broad subject, and there is no real reason for pelvic pain. It's just pain that emanates around your pelvic region. It could be because of some kind of injury. It could be because of an inflammatory condition which is going on in the abdomen, in the organ spaces, or in the pelvic floor organs. Or it could come from the lower back. Or it just could be referred. The pelvic floor, as I have been talking about, is really connected to the soft tissues, the organ space, through a lot of layers of fascia, whose role is not only to give it a sense of holding and connection, but it's extremely rich with a sensory feedback. So the pain perception can be quite high. And then we have the pelvic floor muscles, which form kind of like the floor of your pelvis, and they give that support and like a trampoline effect to it. The exercises that we're going to show in the video are a combination of what we've done in the previous video, so how to engage the pelvic floor and then build on it. The pelvic floor in any condition of pelvic pain could either be sort of a stiffer, tighter set of muscles because there's all of this tension there, or they could just be slack and soft. Either ways, the pelvic floor muscles are weaker. Now, we have to look at it right from the base, and we have a closing that is taking place. So this pelvic floor closing could be because one side is closing less, or the lift is because one set of muscles are not firing equal to its counterpart. So in this video, we're going to just demonstrate a pelvic floor examination of a patient with a pelvic floor examination that was done and had an asymmetry in firing of the pelvic floor muscles, and this resulted in pelvic pain, and how we use these exercises to facilitate that closing one side more than the other. Before you do any of these exercises, it's imperative that you get checked and make sure that there is a pelvic floor specialist who's assisting you with this. And it requires a pelvic floor internal examination to come to a diagnosis to find out different levels of muscle strength and which side is working more. So join us, and as always, like and subscribe if you've enjoyed it, and definitely share our video. We are also looking at the pelvic clock. So the one in the internal pelvis, and that's more muscular. So the reference points there are going to be your sit bones, your tailbone, and we're going to think of drawing it up, but also from the pubic symphysis going towards the floor of the pelvis if we're lying down. So I always give a cue saying, imagine that we are shutting the doors of the elevator. We close the doors of the elevator, or bringing one side of the sit bone to the other, and then we think of drawing up from the tailbone up to the pelvic bone or the symphysis pubis. So tailbone to pubic bone and sit bone to sit bone. Now when we do a pelvic floor examination, and it's an internal examination with the feedback, we are checking to see if these muscles or these doors are closing properly. Is there a good feeling of lift in this direction as well as in this direction? So this is the concept that we're going to teach the client or the patient. We're going to work with the biofeedback and actually get them to perceive this muscle work, and then we're going to put it into the exercises that we have shown you. So we're going to introduce two concepts. We've talked about what is known as the pelvic clock. So if a person is lying, right here, we're going to look at the pelvic clock, and the reference to it is going to be your two little headlights at the top, right? The belly button in the center and the tailbone at the bottom end of it. Or you can even think of it from your pubic symphysis or your pubic bone. So when we're moving the pelvic clock, we're still talking about 12 o'clock, 6 o'clock, 9 and 3. But here the belly button is your 12 o'clock, the pubic bone is your 6 o'clock, your right headlight is 9 and 3. So when we're moving here, we're going to rock the pelvis and down, and then take it to a 9 o'clock or a 3 o'clock, and then join all the dots. So we're going to go down, up, and right to left, and now we're going to go up to the left, down, center, back up and reverse, and join all the aspects of your pelvic clock. Using the concept of the foot series on the reformer, we have started with the feet in the first position. This is adding to the engagement of your inner thigh muscles. The adductors facilitate a lot of the pelvic floor muscle work. And instead of just thinking of it as a strong contraction, we're thinking of a nice zipping up action. Taking that to the second position, so now we have to control through the adductors as they eccentrically work to control the position of the knee, simultaneously working on the pelvic floor. So for each and every exercise, we're really just bringing in that pelvic floor connection. And then again, working on one side. So can we work through those muscles as we do a single leg foot series on the reformer? In the bridge, we're thinking of holding through the pelvic floor muscles, closing the door on one side, maintaining that engagement, holding through the bridge and then pulsing. Keep that pelvic floor connected, and then as you finish the exercise and release, you let go of the pelvic floor. The side lunge is a really good exercise to bring about that connection of working through the pelvic floor muscles from one side. So as you reach out, can you keep that door closed, and does it stay closed as you move? We're setting up for swim in all fours. Placing the foam roller is just giving the patient a way of connecting the dots from the spine, keeping a nicely aligned and lengthened spine, and directing the tailbone to go kind of between the heels rather than pointing or being tucked in. Maintaining this position, we again think of the pelvic floor. So we're looking at it from the pelvic clock on top of the tummy as well as the pelvic floor muscle clock. Bring that engagement, holding that position. We're going to start with lifting and sliding through the arm, holding that and adding the leg. Now, can we hold this? Maintain a good neutral, maintain the spine in its position as we work through the pelvic floor. Working through spinal mobility and the mermaid. Again, engaging the pelvic floor and making sure that the weighted side of the buttock is where we're engaging the pelvic floor muscles from. So giving a proprioceptive feedback during the movement to make sure we're getting the right group of muscle. Working a little bit through the inner thigh muscles as we sit long sit and our feet are outside of the foam roller, so that we work through the pelvic floor to connect but also add an adductor hold and then challenge using small weights through the arms.